Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ray Malesio, and I work with the results team as part of the Office of Migrant Education contract. This is a re-recording of the webinar originally presented on Wednesday, May 21st, 2014. This re-recording is being made to address technical difficulties that happened during the original broadcast. Today, we're going to be discussing interstate coordination and collaboration. The mission of the Office of Migrant Education is to provide leadership, technical assistance, and financial support to improve the educational opportunities and academic success of migrant children, youth, agricultural workers, fishers, and their families. Under that guidance from the Office of Migrant Education, we want to talk about the different aspects involving interstate and interstate coordination and collaboration. Just to make sure, this webinar it's produced under contract with the results team, and by no means is there's no endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any products, services, or anything mentioned, any other services mentioned during this webinar. So during this workshop, what we're going to be discussing is interstate coordination and collaboration. We want to talk about the objectives of this workshop will include to share the resources and the knowledge across the different migrant education programs on this topic. We will try to provide some historical perspective and research regarding how interstate coordination started in migrant education program and the role it has, and discussing a little bit about how to problem solve the issues addressing migrant youth and families in terms of interstate coordination, so we can try to overcome some of the barriers that happen that occur for this population. This slide basically is discussing the different statutes and regulations that affect interstate coordination and what authorize interstate coordination as part of the efforts and services and activities in the migrant education program. So one of the very first things we want to do is we want to ask participants on the webinar, what does interstate coordination means to you? When you think of interstate coordination, what is it exemplifies? What are the different topics that come to mind, the different statements that come to mind? And what we're asking people is to type their responses in the chat box, and to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to see their comments. Now, these were some of the comments that we received in the chat box that were commented by the different individuals who were participating in the webinar. And as you can see, what does interstate coordination mean? If you read through some of these comments, it involves states working together to help migrant kids, states and locals working together to ensure migrant children have continuity of instruction, working with other states to make sure migrant students have as little interruption as possible. You see that it's a very interstate coordination is very important to helping migrant students achieve success, and working together to help break down the barriers for our migrant students. Some of the comments also included using student data to inform decisions, so to inform program planning on how states can share resources. The states that share students can talk together and plan how they're going to provide services to this population. And again, you see again the statement of working together to benefit migrant children. Part of the also some of the additional comments, as you can see, was in terms of what interstate coordination means to the people who were listening to the webinar, to the live broadcast. Addressed a lot about states working in collaboration, states discussing together, talking together about different aspects of how they can serve children better, how they can look at the needs of the children so they can provide more of a coordinated effort to help these kids to provide to minimize to provide services that will minimize the interrupted schooling for this population. According to the OME guidance, the guidance from the Office of Migrant Education, interstate coordination, it refers to the activities that two or more states take, they are become engaged in order to improve the education of migrant children who move between those states. That's the guidance, the non-regulatory guidance, and you can find that in page 84 of the document. So you can see this. It talks the instruction, the comment from the guidance goes along with very strongly with what some of the comments of people were responding in the chat box. Now, this definition of what is interstate coordination, this comes actually from practitioners in the field, from research. It's like interstate coordination makes it possible for states to work together. You see this comment of working together, states working together in order to appropriately place children in education programs, as well as to design programs that assist with credit accrual, continuity of instruction, records transfer. What is interesting is, this is a comment from 2002 that we have here. One of the things that we did for this webinar is that we interviewed and solicited video clips from different individuals across the country that will talk to us about interstate coordination. And but we're going to want to try to what we want to accomplish now, what we want to share now, it's some of these videos and some of these comments from the different coordinators. So I'm going to go ahead and play this first slide for you to look, and we'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Maria Garcia Guzman, Director of the Texas Migrant Interstate Program, a project for the Texas Education Agency. Some of the strategies that work best when conducting interstate coordination are continuous and constant communications, effective exchange of critical student information, and out-of-state summer programs.
As you can see, that what Maria Garcia Guzman, she's the director of the Texas Migrant Interstate Program. She's talking about the continuous and constant communication. Also, in addition, that's what's very important is the effective exchange of critical student information, and it's very important for states who have out-of-state, the states that provide summer programs, that they coordinate so the kids who that visit their states actually are able to provide services to the children that will be beneficial to those kids as they return to their home base. Let's also look at the next comment, the next audio clip from Omar Chavez. He's the director of Region 1 down in Texas. Region 1 in Texas is, has an incredibly large number of migrant children. Migrant children in Region 1, Texas, travel to almost 47 states, mostly central states, and talking about close to 30,000 migrant kids. So let's see what his perspective.
What's the importance of interstate coordination for you?
Well, it's for me, it's important to have that coordination because it helps us establish a good relationship between states. Also, it helps establish good programming coordination for our kids who are very much in need to continue their education without any type of disruption, without any type of fragmentation. That's why it's so important for me, for kids to come back and know.
Again, we see the comment about how it's important to establish relationship between states, establish good communication, so coordination for coordination for for the services for these students to take place without disruption. And I like this comment in the end there where he talks about how for kids to come back and know that there was little that they missed, that they really, that they don't feel this disruption caused because of their migration. The third comment is from Angela Brands-Paul, the director of the Montana Migrant Education Program, and again, want to look at the different perspectives that she brings into this.
Here in Montana, we assist school districts by coordinating educational records for placement of migrant students in school programs, and by continuing to work through the consortium incentive grants to provide instructional continuity and support in math, literacy, technology, and secondary and out-of-school youth options. For migrant students enrolling late in Montana or leaving Montana schools early, we provide districts with educational options, programs such as PASS or other online curricula accepted by the LEAs, and communicate with the state where the student is moving to alert them of student needs. Recently, for example, in an unusual situation, a migrant secondary student in a small Montana rural district who is eligible for the migrant program based on his family's migration to Alaska for fishing needed assistance in obtaining portable coursework and credit counseling prior to his move to Alaska. We worked with the Montana district personnel and notified the Alaska SEA that the student was migrating, and we provided his family contact information. In this situation, the Montana MEP acted as a sending state, which is unusual for us. The usual pattern for Montana is to be a receiving state and to work with sending states on well-planned summer programs that our shared students will benefit from.
So again, a lot of the talk and a lot of the comments have to do with coordinating efforts, coordinating educational records, communicating with the districts where the students are traveling to and from. This is what's extremely important in regarding interstate coordination, which of course it's it goes with the title, goes with the name. What I'd like to do next is, as part of the preparation for this webinar, is like we try to look at what were the origins or the starts of interstate coordination. How did this this came into play? So this next few slides will talk a little bit about the historical perspective of interstate coordination, trying to discuss what were the earlier ideas or topics regarding interstate coordination. How did this start? How did the concept actually came to mind or was created within the migrant education community? And what was interesting is that these early studies did not actually mention interstate coordination because the concept wasn't thought of. It talked more about the problems faced by children because of the lack of continuity and how this lack of continuity hurt these kids. So some of the early research that we were able to find and had to do with talked about the awareness of this discontinuity of services, and then it discussed about teachers not being prepared to do a rapid diagnosis on students, and they had difficulties in placing students in the appropriate grades and the appropriate classrooms because they lacked records. Some of the studies also mentioned how some personal notes that were included that the kids brought with them from the teachers where they had been working with previously from in other states were very helpful. So this, you can see here how these were like the early steps or the early stages of trying to account for the efforts that would try to account for the lack of continuity. In 1964, around 1964, the National Committee on the Education of Migrant Children was created as a subset of the as created as part of the efforts towards helping migrant kids, and they were asked mostly to talk about how to develop a plan that will help with the for coordination and continuity of education for migrant children. This is the same group that resulted from the first national migrant conference in San Luis, and what they did is that they provided the early agreements that will foster the language and the discussion that gave interstate coordination and identity. In this group, then in 1965, they met in Florida, in Avon Park, Florida, and they discussed what will be, they tried to establish some of the roadmap or the guidelines or the parameters of how we're going to discuss interstate coordination within the migrant community. And they talked about cooperation and coordination for planning and programming of services for migrant children, both on interstate and interstate and inter-area basis. Their recommendations then in 1965, their recommendations were that the program should look into establishing an interstate clearinghouse, that this clearinghouse will have all information on the different curriculum, teaching materials, techniques, school locations, school openings, contacts. This clearinghouse will have all this information that will be available for people who were working with migrant kids, migrant students, that they will be able to find and coordinate and contact these different places. Also the recommendations from the committee were that there should be more a better use of the different school and health records, a more effective use. There were some concerns at the time that this data was not being used appropriately, and there was a bigger interest in making sure that to use the data in an effective manner to help kids to be able to place them, to avoid, again, if we had the immunization records, the kids will be able to be enrolled in school and things like that. There was a lot of attention. That one of the recommendations that was that more attention should be given to continuity based on their home-based schools. In other words, rather than trying to, if the kids who were moving from Texas to, let's say, Michigan, instead of trying to help these kids graduate from Michigan, that effort should be made to try to help these kids graduate from Texas, because that is where they were traveling from in the first place. Then to talk about the use of a mobile team approach. This was one of the things that early on there were more efforts regarding interstate coordination, more interstate coordination efforts like this, where you would see teachers and counselors traveling up north, let's sort of say at the same places where the migrant families were going, in order to try to prepare the land, let's say, or get things going for the services that will be needed by the kids, making sure there will be some sort of continuity in terms of what educational goals were to be provided for migrant kids in the home-based state. So you will see this mobile team approach being used. In 1992, then, as we continue looking at research, the report from the National Commission on Migrant Children, the report, they looked at different aspects and issues regarding migrant children, and the commission developed or prepared their report in 1992. It was called Invisible Children, a report of migrant education in the United States. And this report involved educators and advocates from many places in the country, and the report summarized 3 years of study and consultation in an effort to try to improve the education of migrant children. And even though the commission was established in 1989, the report came out in 1992, and these were some of the things that they some of their comments regarding interstate communication, interstate coordination, were that they realized, they recognized that information is exchanged between programs in order to reduce the problems encountered by the children due to their migration. In addition, they also the commission also recognized that the communication was both formal and informal. It all depended on how the different partners and the different individuals who were playing or who were uh, involved in the services to children. So it all depended on who how, the number of kids who were traveling from one state to another. It will influence the efforts that were made in order between those two states in order to establish coordination. Another study addresses an example of interstate coordination, something that was found in research in a report entitled Handbook of Effective Migrant Education Practices, Volume 1 Findings. This was prepared by the United States Department of Education in 1990. It talked about the different coordination efforts that were developed to address continuity of services. And they talked about this one example about how the interstate coordination was occurring at the time in the 1990s, late 1980s actually, and it was a three-state agreement between Texas, Illinois, and Wisconsin, and how their agreement had an emphasis on the curriculum and the materials used for instruction for students in Illinois and Wisconsin that came from Texas. So these kids were using the same textbooks, and the secondary kids who were coming from Texas to these two places were receiving instruction. The secondary students were receiving instruction in English and math, social studies, and in GED preparation, different additional instruction that will help them graduate from school. Because again, that was the goal. It was trying to minimize the disruption caused, minimize the efforts caused by the disruption of the migration. So this is just one of the many examples that were occurring at the time. And also, what was interesting is like staff from Illinois will travel to Texas and vice versa. On a report entitled Handbook of Effective Migrant Education Practices, Volume 1 Findings, that was prepared for the United States Department of Education. There were many interesting efforts addressing continuity of services and interstate coordination, and that had been developed mostly by states involving children from many parts of Texas as they traveled and to the states that they traveled to. This one example that I'm providing here, it's an early agreement of 3 states in the 1990 and late in the 1980s actually, where where these 3 states coordinated efforts to help the students who traveled between Texas and those states to make sure that the curriculum and the materials used for instruction were coordinated in a manner that the students in Illinois and Wisconsin will be using the same books that they were using back in Texas, and that secondary students were receiving individual instruction on different topics like English, math, and social studies. Topics that will help them as they travel between their state, Texas, and up to the stream to places like Illinois and Wisconsin. So the idea again was the states, you could see how the states were working together in order to try to help minimize the interruption, the effects caused by the disruption or the interruption of schooling. Now there were the report also and other efforts have been documented, or similar strategies or similar activities happen in states and kids traveling from Florida up to the west, up to the East Coast, or kids traveling from California up to places like Portland and Washington State. So the research and there's the perspective, the historical precedent of different activities where the states have been doing taking steps to work together to minimize the effects of migration on children. And when studying interstate coordination, in a report developed by the United States Department of Ed in 2002, Gonipro and his co-researchers identified or defined interstate coordination as the procedures that used by people to do an activity with others. In other words, the different steps or the different strategies or the different habits or the different activities that people engage when they were trying when they were working, when they're trying to establish some sort of coordination or some sort of cooperation or working relationship with other individuals. And that's how coordination was defined. And their study, Gonipro and his co-researchers, they wrote that there were three types of some of these procedures, like recurrent routines. These were customary procedures that defined well-established routines. In other words, these were things that they were used to conducting. These recurrent routines are things that we do every year, or the states that have interstate coordination efforts do every year, like establishing or developing a list of summer program closings and openings, having a list of the different places where summer schools will be available in different states. So these are recurrent procedures that that are being done because they are used to conducting these studies, or they're used to conducting these activities, because they don't need any permission or any reminder or there's no need any memo for people to go ahead and, we need this time, we're getting ready for summer, it's time to develop our list. So that's a recurrent habit. Then there were something that they define as centrally directed coordination. It basically refers to the effort of having a procedure established where it would set up the new routines, and it would select and refine and optimize existing routines. There was an office, or there was a group of people identified to help establish, to help improve this interstate coordination efforts. Today, the sample of that today will be places like the Texas Migrant Interstate Program or the Florida Migrant Interstate Program. This is coordination that takes place through this entity, through this group, in order to make sure that interstate coordination happens. And then we have the different negotiated procedures that either are through an arrangement, through it's like a informal arrangement or a contract, that it provides alternatives when these routines that have been established are in conflict or are not working out. So then it's important that we do some sort of improving of our procedures, and we have a plan in place on how we're going to improve this, or what are we going to do to change our coordination. An example of that will be, we plan for our kids that are going to be going from Florida to South Carolina this year, and then all of a sudden the kids don't go to South Carolina, they go to Georgia, or they travel to New Jersey, or different parts. So we have to then reestablish how we're going to do the interstate coordination efforts. How there needs to be some arrangements and some changes in plans and whatnot. One of the things that the trading partner study by Gonipro identified also, there were 4 specific strategies that states or entities that engage in interstate coordination that need to take place. The first thing that they identified was the alignment of district policies, and basically what the key was that the districts or the programs or the states that were working in coordination to serve to promote interstate coordination, they needed to basically follow the home district policies for placement of an assessment of children. It will serve no purpose on having kids who are going to up to a state, they're going up to, I don't know, Pennsylvania, to try to graduate them from Pennsylvania when they're coming from Florida or Texas or some other state where their home base is. If the kid's home base is Pennsylvania, then of course we want the kid to graduate from, to complete the requirements to graduate from Pennsylvania. But if he or she is coming from somewhere else, that the effort should be aligned to the home base state. The next effort, or the next action that identified by the research was that student information and data exchange, student information exchange and access. Basically, how important it is data transfer and credit accrual. This has always been a key component of interstate coordination. Having the data, it's so important in order to be able to place the kid in the appropriate classroom, to be able to place the student in the appropriate grade level. This is the one measure that's actually it's one thing that you can actually measure. This is a document. This is something that's a tangible effort that we can actually say we have the data that will help us place this kid in the grade he or she needs to attend, or this is the health record that will help this kid to be enrolled in school. That's why it's very important. And now one of the things that we always want to remind people is that even though that there have been different efforts in the past on how to do this, and there's always an ongoing number of activities, especially as technology increases and it's more commonly used, one of the things that needs to be kept in mind is that we need to make sure that no personal identifiable information is transferred in inappropriate manners. You shouldn't be transferring any of this PII information through email. That we need to make sure that information that has children's personal data is transferred in a secure and a confidential manner, not only for the protection of the kids but also for the protection of the program. Because of FERPA and other regulations. But again, systems like M6 or the different database systems like MIS 2000, COE Star and NGS, they actually have, they have a high level of security and confidentiality, because both are very important. Confidentiality and FERPA are extremely important and must be followed at all times. The third aspect is making sure that the staff, providing the staff with the tools so they can actually understand and implement interstate coordination. If a lot of times we ask, having staff understand why interstate coordination is important is an essential part of making sure that they are able to promote it, and making sure that it's an important part of of ensuring that the staff at both ends are going to be entering the data on time, or securing or coordinating in an effective manner with other states, or trying to track better where the kids are going to or where they have been, so in order they can actually establish interstate coordination in a meaningful manner. Sometimes when if the staff doesn't understand, the importance of how we're promoting credit accrual, then it's not, it's going to be very difficult to actually establish interstate coordination. So having staff aware of the different efforts for credit accrual and understanding why it's important makes it helps promote interstate coordination. And then finally, the fourth one identified by the research was that the opportunities for supplemental instruction in the past, or in some efforts, the way this is looked is like what we're trying to do, or what the program tries to do, is to making sure that instruction will happen at the receiving stage during the summer. You will see situations, or used to see situations, where kids who were, kids in sending states will have the opportunity to pre-enroll in summer programs at some receiving states where they thought they will be attending to or they will be traveling to. So they have, there was some sort of an advanced registration process where kids will know, oh, gee, I'm going to Indiana. This way I'll know at the local sending state, they will be able to say, okay, these are the programs in Indiana. These are, this is the people you need to contact. Let's try to pre-enroll you. So when you get there, you will be able to enroll in school. This was most common with, will be most common with secondary students rather than the younger ones. So what does this mean? What all these efforts about all this research means regarding interstate coordination, how does it look today? Especially some of the stuff, some of the information that you read of that we were discussing, it's 10, 15 years old or more. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over through some of the videos, again, of the different interviews that were conducted. And here you'll be able to see we have Jonathan Ferno, who's the director of the Oregon Migrant Education Program. And what we're going to have him discuss is a little bit about, interstate coordination from his point of view.
With California, we've really worked with them. We have several places where 95% of our summer school comes from California. So we have our director from those areas go to California, talk with the families that are moving up, find out who's coming up, find out what needs they are. So when they have summer school, they already know who's coming up, and they know that we know that we're going to teach to the California standards because that's the group that's coming up. In many cases, we've hired their own principal and their own teachers to come up with those students from some of the bigger areas like Madera and Yuba City. And so when the kids travel all the way to Oregon and their parents are working in picking cherries, the students go to the first day of summer school, and lo and behold, there's their same teacher and said, Jose, you didn't finish this unit, and I'm here to make sure that you get it.
So that was Jonathan Ferno. Like he was saying, you could tell that some of the things that he mentioned are the things that we've been doing. We've been sharing or discussing here that have been evident over in research, and having staff from his state meet with the staff of the state where the kids traveled from, or to, in this case, California, and meet with the staff, the opportunity for these two groups to talk about the children that they serve in common, and have some of their summer programs hire local California staff to come over and be at the state in Oregon when the kids from California travel to Oregon, and they'll be there to help the kids out. And so this working together on behalf of improving the lives of the kids they commonly serve, it's an essential part of the interstate coordination concept. This next video is from Jenny Pruitt, and she's a regional director of a migrant center in Indiana. And let's see what Ms. Pruitt has to share with the group.
We are currently engaged in interstate coordination. We have visited Florida twice. We just came back from Florida. We visited Brownsville two years. So this is our 4th year of interstate collaboration. The thing that we do is we do visit these schools, try to make sure that our high school credits are the main thing that we focus on. Make sure that these credits are transferring, make sure that our high school graduation requirements are similar so that we can.
So that was Ms. Pruitt, and again, you could see some of the concepts are very similar to what we've been talking all along. It's the trying to ensure that the credits from Indiana are being transferred back to the what that the credits of what the students take in Indiana are being transferred back into where the kids go back to Texas or Florida. Trying to make sure that, and also trying to make sure that in their state the high school graduation requirements are similar than to the sending state. Again, trying the emphasis being placed on making sure that the kids will graduate from the sending state, because that's where they will have the most of their schoolwork has taken place. So what is needed to establish interstate coordination? We asked the people participating in the webinar to give us some of their thoughts of what what are the aspects, or what are the strategies that are needed in order to ensure that interstate coordination takes place. And these were some of the comments that we received from the different individuals. Again, a lot of talk about knowing what you're sending, knowing who is your sending state. In other words, where are the kids that are coming to your state? What are their needs while they are in your state? Making sure that you communicate between those states. Again, a lot of talk, a lot of comments from the chat box about how it's important to share the data from state to state, and how making sure there's a constant communication between both states. You can see additional comments. Again, knowing or being aware of the different patterns of migration, the types of needs, who are the people that you need to work with, who are the stakeholders. You need to know the graduation requirements from the states where the kids are coming from. Cooperation, communication, strong relationship, the type and time frame of services that are provided. Those are some of the comments. And then additional comments, you can see cooperation between mutual cooperation. Again, the whole concept of states working together, identifying the unique needs of the students, and rapid targeted intervention and services. In addition, there was a lot of comments, as you can see, from about what is needed. You can see that knowing where your students, knowing the student movement patterns, where they're coming from. You establish relationship with the sending and the receiving states. Again, some of the same comments that we've been talking on and on about constant communication. You can see a comment here by Bruce Wright about using M6, because it's, using M6 is important because it helps, it assists you in planning your summer program or the services you're going to provide in a more effective manner. We have additional comments about the personal connections, creating a common document that includes the graduation requirements from all states, the states that are working together. You want to look into see, what we have in common and what are the things that we need to work on. And making sure that the communication with the state, with the sending state, or the receiving state is ongoing and it's constant, so to avoid any disruption of services. And now we're going to take a quick look at some of the comments that the different individuals have shared regarding how they see what's important for interstate coordination and communication. We're going to start with Mr. Furno.
How do you start interstate collaboration?
One of the first ways that I started when I first became a director was to meet states that were the same size and meeting states that were neighboring states and talking with them about how they met the needs of their students as far as IDNR, as far as services, and then brainstorming and sharing. Since a lot of those same students move from state to state, how could I continue to support them when they came through my state?
Now let's see what Ms. Pruitt has to say about the same concept. Again, a lot of the same conversation, the same key elements are discussed as part of what is essential. So let's share this.
In order for interstate coordination to happen is good communication between the state directors and to have personal connections. The personal communication, the personal connection is important. I feel like that if you can go and make the personal connections within the state, you talk to a lot of people when you get there. Since we're receiving state, we get a lot of students from Florida and Texas, and with the interstate collaboration, I'm able to go and meet the people that I talk to on the phone and to see the students also while I'm there, and it makes a big difference in how we are able to deal with issues with the students and to better.
So these were, again, some additional comments about how to establish interstate coordination. When you're planning for interstate coordination, then based on what some of the comments that we've been hearing both from the research and from the different individuals who share their views, it's like you want to know who are the interstate students in the state. You want to know their demographics, their age group, their background, and you want to know where they're coming from. You know, what states, where in the state. I mean, it varies. I mean, in some states, some of the large or the bigger states, obviously it's going to be differences in where the kids come from. Within the state, there might have different aspects. You might have some kids who have more urban background versus a rural background, or vice versa. So those things are important to know in order for you to establish who you want to contact. Who you want to contact interstate coordination. You know, who you want to contact in order to have interstate coordination going in your state and to start the process. Then additional information that you need when you're planning is that these address the timing of what and when services will be provided. The timing on when to conduct interstate coordination is extremely crucial. You know, after knowing what state you want to establish contact with, you as a state or as a program, you need to make a determination on when to contact this potential partner and when you should start interstate coordination. I mean, you want to avoid, you know, like it might happen sometimes that to establish this your interstate coordination efforts when the kids are already on their way, or when the kids are there, it's a little bit too. It makes it more complicated, and not impossible, but it's just more complicated. So you need to know. Again, when you look at when the interstate students arrive in the state, it helps you to determine when you should contact the other states and when you should start or initiate interstate coordination. And then knowing the special needs of the students in their state, of the interstate students in their state, helps you to figure out what instructional service or what health care or critical services that you're going to be providing. It will help you identify if you need to do how much of a ESL services for young adults or for OSY students. I mean, you have, you know, the population is always changing in migrant ed, and knowing what are the needs, it's an extremely important, you know, important part of the process, because then you'll be able to know as a state or as a program what are the services that you're going to provide. So now, let's talk a little bit about what are some essential aspects. Let's go. We're going to review a couple of few clips on what are some key aspects or essential aspects of what is needed for interstate, in order for interstate coordination to be effective. I'm going to start with Mr. Chavez here.
What do you consider that makes interstate coordination effective?
Yeah, the effectiveness what I consider to be very effective is for us to be communicating an ongoing communication. It's always a two-way communication with individual states and multiple states, depending on where the kid is going. It is so important, so crucial that we maintain those two lines of communication. Again, if those lines are cut off for some reason, then of course the kid is the one that gets hurt. Because again, we're trying to avoid the kid's education to be interrupted, to be fragmented. We understand that there's multiple curriculums that need to be looked upon, but as long as we maintain that line of communication, that would benefit our kids. Basically, it's a win-win situation, because by having that coordination, that communication, our kids can excel, but at the same time, the districts excel. Because again, with this new accountability systems that we have here in Texas, it is vital. It is vital that our kids are being performing at an optimal level. And again, if we don't have that communication, that's
And
what
now
we
let's
hurt
look at,
our kids.
after, what Mr. Chavez is discussing about the importance of the ongoing communication. That's, again, extremely important. Let's see what Mr. Ferno
So what are some
says.
of the strategies that work best when you're conducting interstate coordination?
One of the best strategies is meeting face to face, building a relationship and getting to know people that do the same job in surrounding states. And so when we're part of a consortium like IMEC or our SIG, those multiple opportunities to meet in a casual way and get to know them as people and build relationships with them, and then in a professional way to ask, how do you do your program, and how could we work collaborative together to meet the same needs.
So as you heard, the emphasis that Mr. Ferno indicates is the importance of the personal communication between individuals. That's what makes the process much easier when we're talking to somebody that you have established a relationship, a positive working relationship that assists in the process. Now you're talking about somebody you've actually met rather than somebody that you've never met and you never talked to over the phone. Just only over the phone. So did these two individuals emphasize on the communication part of it? Let's just listen to these two quick audios again regarding interstate, of the essential aspects of interstate coordination.
Effective exchange of critical student information should flow smoothly between three partners: receiving states, Texas schools, and parents. Testing data is collected to assist in the migrant students' placement and instructional programs. Migrant students' educational records are checked for correct course placement and accuracy to ensure that state and district requirements are fulfilled before graduation. Receiving states are kept informed on changes and updates to the Texas graduation requirements, on changes and updates to any of the state-mandated assessments, or to any changes in the requirements in taking the TAKS or STAR assessment with emphasis on mastery as a requirement for graduation or grade-level promotion. Parent meetings are conducted to raise awareness on out-of-state testing, out-of-state school attendance, graduation requirements, what credit recovery means and what credits need to be recovered by their child, and understanding their child's transcript. Presentations at state PAC meetings are very important. This gives parents new and changing information that is pertinent to migrant issues. Receiving states are notified immediately as a student is referred or is due to migrate to their state.
Okay, effective interstate coordination to me is being able to visit schools and in Florida and Texas for us, because that's where most of our students come from, and to collaborate with those schools to align curriculum and
So after listening to all 4 clips, um, and listening to what the individuals considered were essential aspects of interstate coordination, what we did, we asked the participants, of the webinar participants, to write in the chat box, are there any other additional essential aspects of interstate coordination? What other aspects or other elements that are needed for interstate coordination that comes to mind when they're thinking, what is needed for the process? And we asked participants to please type in their responses in the chat box. And these were some of the comments that came up. It's important to follow up, to making sure that the student is not held back as a result of migration. It's consistent, reliable staff. It's responding in a timely manner. The use of data and resources like M6, having a centralized place for the information. Again, the concept of clearinghouse, as we had heard before from from the research. Using M6, coming up with engaging, innovative curriculum and strategies that helps target student needs. One of the comments here by Jonathan Ferno talks about how, besides student support, using program support for interstate coordination, using interstate coordination as a matter of program support, like helping to conduct re-interviews, or having the assistance of other states to help your program with developing CNAs or STPs because of the comprehensive needs assessment, or service delivery plans. Because of the experience that these other states have, they might be able to help you with these processes. An important aspect of interstate coordination, again, additional aspect, is getting the families involved. Having all the dates and the summer programs available, so states have them in a central location, so states can have them and be able to contact them and reach them when needed. Making sure the parents are given the essential information so they can take this information with them. A lot of talk in these comments here as additional aspects about empowering the families, as you can see, and breaking down the barriers between the sending state and the receiving state. So, and when we ask the people, the folks in the webinar, what will be some of the additional essential aspects, the comments talked a lot about follow-up, empowerment of families, working with the families, helping the family, making sure that the families understood the process. So ongoing aspects, essential aspects of interstate coordination include ongoing communication, making sure that there's either informal or formal processes that are followed for making sure that coordination take place, using data effectively, and also make sure that communication is facilitated. In other words, having directories or program websites that has when the summer programs take place, or who to contact in case of kid is going to X or Y place in a specific state. Having this information available on the web will helps programs in order to establish a better, to maintain communication. Of course, we also have to consider the barriers to interstate coordination, and there are different aspects or different types of barriers that are, probably have become evident after the discussion that we've had from the different individuals in the videos. For example, how the timeliness, the timing of the interstate coordination effort. When is the interstate coordination takes place? That when do you start talking to the states that you share kids with? It's an important aspect, and sometimes not doing it at the right time will be a barrier. Contacting the right state partner, making sure that using your data, using your migration patterns, you're able to identify which are the states that you want to establish coordination and communication, interstate coordination with. it will be, we really cannot control where the families are going to. We can develop a program in one state, and like the bullet there says, the families will tell us, oh, well, we went to, we traveled to Michigan. We didn't go to Illinois this year. We went to Michigan. So it's you need to be prepared. You need to be flexible for situations like that, and that is obviously a barrier to coordination. With another barrier is with the increased use of technology and the access to technology. Sometimes the cost for implementing the latest and the greatest, it could be costly, at least the upfront funding for it, and or the upfront expense from the state. So you want to make sure that if you are a state, any state that is developing an interstate or using technology to develop or establish the interstate coordination, you want to make sure that you're selecting effective technology, or technology means that will last, that will be, last a long time, that will be relevant in a year or so, especially with the quickly way technology changes. So one of the things that was identified also in the research by GONIPRO, for example, was as a barrier, was that there's only traditionally there's only a few exemplary sites. The states can only provide efforts in a few exemplary places where kids will be traveling to, because there's a traditional aspect of or a recurring pattern that families go to X place every summer, and what the problem with this, or one of the situations that happens with this, according to the research, is that then there's a lack of other sites, other exemplary sites. All the efforts are put into just a few baskets, or a few activities, rather than trying to have a number of exemplary sites. And that is part of the commitment, or a lack of commitment, to making sure that the interstate coordination takes place in an effective manner. Let's just then, using the same concept, or continue to talk about barriers, let's listen to what one of our panelists had mentioned regarding interstate coordination and the barriers to interstate coordination.
Barriers to interstate coordination can include a lack of knowledge at the SEA or LEA level of migration patterns and/or constantly changing mobility patterns. Barriers might also include a lack of understanding that the most mobile students are often the very most difficult to serve. Priority for service students should have programs designed around their actual mobility-related needs. That is, how much instructional time are students losing as a result of moving from state to state or school to school? The service delivery plan at the SEA level should address the types of services which the migrant education program will provide to alleviate this disruption. Sometimes this is very hard to do when mobility patterns change or are of short duration, or if the staff lacks training and understanding necessary to conduct such programs. Another less common barrier can occur when a sending state really does not view summer receiving programs as essential in improving migrant student learning. Research exists which clearly demonstrates that many students, and nearly all at-risk students, lose academic ground during the summer months when not engaged in active, challenging educational programs in optimal learning environments. So not taking the summer slide, as we call it, in student learning outcomes into consideration in program design and planning makes interstate coordination with such states that provide the majority of their supplemental services during the regular school year very much more difficult to do.
So based on the videos, you'll see the lack of a knowledge of migration patterns and underestimating the effects of the summer slide in migrant children are some of the comments made by Mrs. Brands-Paul regarding the what are some of the barriers to interstate coordination. Let's take a look at what Jonathan Ferno from Oregon had to share regarding what he considers to be some of the barriers to interstate coordination.
Some of the barriers for implementing effective interstate coordination.
One of the biggest barriers is a change of personnel. When you have a good relationship with the director or the head of IDNR or the specific people that do a job within a state, and when they leave, then you have to start all over again sometimes. Also, I think the understanding the differences on their service delivery plan and what their focus is. And as that changes, then your needs change in ways that you can collaborate.
So again, the change of key personnel, it's definitely a big barrier, according to Mr. Ferno, to interstate coordination, because you have to start all over. Also, a change in the service delivery plan affects the way the programs can collaborate. If a state changes their service delivery plan without sharing this with their partner state, the interstate partner state, then the services that are being provided are not going to match. They're going to be an indirect relationship. So that's an important aspect that could be one of the things that it's considered a barrier to interstate coordination. During the webinar, we also had a number of different comments that were provided during the that were provided through the chat box. And one of the questions asked was, is there anybody who uses an online program to enhance students' chances to graduate? And there were two responses. One talking about how they've used University of Texas online courses, Plato, and Novanet for secondary students. And another response spoke about online programs, Pass, Plato, and Odyssey Ware. So these are just a couple of the options that were provided, or some of the responses that were provided to the question. There was additional comments trying to answer that question about a suggestion to check out the Center for Summer Learning. The Center for Summer Learning organization for additional resources, and it mentions about how Texas has Project Smart, Project Math Matters, and which are some curriculum examples that are available at a very little cost through Region 20. This is Region 20 in Texas. Then Mr. Ferno provides a video on the effects of summer slide, and here's the link for people to take a look and take advantage if they want it. We also wanted to collect additional examples of interstate coordination, and just quickly to share these two on how different states conduct these type of efforts. Let's start with, again, Mr. Ferno.
Some of the benefits and the results that you've obtained through interstate coordination.
We've had some fantastic growth and benefits. One of the ones that I'm going to mention is every 3 years we need to do re-interviews from an outside source. And so along with the state of Washington person, Israel, comes to Oregon and does the re-interview, and Olivia from our state goes to the state of Washington and does their re-interviews.
And another example, quickly, this one from Omar Chavez in Region 1 in Texas.
Currently have an example of an interstate coordination project.
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, we initiated what we call the Project North Star. This program or this project involves us from the Region 1 area hiring certified teachers in ELA and in math. And of course, what they do, they video conference with kids who are in the Van Buren ISD, in Michigan. And of course, it's live feed. In other words, if kids have questions, raise their hands. The teacher, calls on the kid. And of course, the teacher is focusing on the end of course exams. Of course, trying to teach them those skill sets that would hopefully prompt the kid to be successful in our end of course exams. As you know, our Texas students, if they don't pass those end of course exams, they cannot graduate. So it's vital that us, and work with in conjunction with a TMIP, Michigan, and of course, just recently talked to another state, which is Ohio. They were willing to also engage themselves in the Project North Star. So now we're going to have a teacher teaching, and then we're going to have two states simultaneously hearing the lecture live feed. That's the way we're trying to cut down on that, or rather looking for that missing link. And that's how we're trying to close the gap as far as curriculums. Again, it's been very successful in the last 2 years. Kids are being assessed, and we have a very high percentage of kids passing those tests. But most importantly, the kids are not missing on curriculum, because again, they might be working in the fields and so forth. So that's what I call interstate coordination. When we have 2 or 3 states, 4 states, working together, or more states working together with the same common goal, and that's to get our kids ahead of the game. In other words, we live in a very, very competitive world, so we need to offer and actually look into our resources and provide the best possible opportunities for our kids to be successful.
So those were additional examples. You could see how different the different strategies or different uses of interstate coordination for both that were presented by both. Another example that was mentioned in the chat that we want to share was for example, Project SMART, and then between Texas and Montana, where there was a commitment to use technology. The Project SMART was started in the late 80s, so and to think of how much we've changed between the late 80s to today, how still at the time there was a commitment to make sure that that technology was used to improve migrant education. The educators at the time, they wanted to explore how to use technology to improve interstate coordination, which and then will improve, will minimize the results caused by disruption or the lack of continuity of education. There was a willingness to have staff, to share the staff and to share the expertise and the funding between the 2 states during the time of Project SMART. And there was a belief that the migrant children deserved opportunities for academic success, and that the migrant children deserved the latest that was available in terms of technology in order to be able to continue, their educational, in order to achieve educational success. So then we asked the people in the webinar to type in the chat box why they thought interstate coordination was important, and why they think it was why we needed to continue doing interstate coordination. And these were some of the responses that we received. And basically, interstate coordination is the reason for migrant education. It's what makes migrant different than other Title I Part A programs. We want to make sure that to ensure student achievement despite the barriers. And because we shared, and one of the comments here is like, so we shared the students, the nature that we share the kids that travel within the States, coordination, it seems like a logical uh, part of the process. Then again, if why would we have a program if we didn't all cooperate? The coordination is important for the success of the students because of their mobility and education interruption, and because we share the kids. These are some of, as you can see, these are some of the things that individuals were sharing on terms of why it's important to have interstate coordination. Some additional comments included that it's important since migrant children belong to all of us. You see the whole effort of it is not they are not one state's kids. They belong to the program. They are, again, the same concept of education without borders. And the idea that these are our kids. These are not just one specific kids, but our kids. And we want to make sure that, again, non-additional comment is the purpose of the grant is to ensure that the barriers faced by our migrant kids are overcome. Since they are moving across boundaries, we must coordinate the efforts. So now, why interstate coordination is important? I want to share a couple of additional video clips that center on maybe what I consider to be one of the most important reasons why we have interstate coordination.
Señora Cruz, ¿cuáles fueron algunas de las ciudades o estados que ustedes viajaron?
Pues mire, yo le doy gracias a Dios, a pesar de que yo desde 1988 he estado viajando en diferentes partes, en diferentes lugares, que es Immokalee, Homestead, Tennessee, Michigan, Ohio, Norte Carolina, Virginia. Yo siempre arrastraba a mis hijos a los trabajos, pero yo le doy gracias a Dios, a pesar de que yo los cambiaba de escuela a escuela, ellos lograron su meta. Yo pienso que lo que cuenta es el apoyo de los padres. Y ahorita, pues como madre, yo pongo como ejemplo para otros padres y me siento orgullosa porque pues ya tengo 2 hijos graduados y Francisco termina su segundo año.
Why we do interstate coordination? Meet Ms. Senorina Cruz. Ms. Senorina Cruz lives in North Florida in the Quincy area, and she has 4 kids. 3 of them are either camp graduates or currently enrolled at camp. And then she has the 4th kid, that's her daughter. It's in the 11th grade, and she's hoping to follow one of her siblings into the camp program. Since 1988, they've been traveling between Immokalee, Homestead, Tennessee, Michigan, Ohio, North Carolina, Virginia. They've been picking strawberries in the most part, but they've also picked other efforts. And she talked about how, even though she it was it was tough for the children to change schools so frequently, that she was glad that they were able to reach their goals. She speaks about how she's a highly advocate parent. She advocated for herself, but also there's the implicit knowledge that there is the importance of interstate coordination in order to be able to for their kids to succeed. So that so Ms. Cruz talks about a little bit. It's one of the examples of why we have to continue engaging in interstate coordination and why we have to make sure that interstate coordination happens at the different levels. Let me show you another video. This is Francisco Cruz Cantero. This is one of Ms. Cruz's children, and he's a camp student at St. Edward's University. And let's just see what he has to say.
So as you were traveling across the different parts of the country, how important was for you to be able to adapt or to engage in the new communities, the new schools where you arrived? Was it easy? Was it difficult?
Traveling from place to place was difficult at times. having to situate in another home, having to find new friends, having to socialize with new friends is also, and also having that connection with classes as far as educational. Um, like different states have different educational, I guess, requisites and also plans. So there's some states where I was far in front, and there was a state where I was far behind, and that was a little bit of trouble of having to go from state to state. That once I reached another state, I was far in front of all the kids, and I would just sit there in school and just listen to what they were saying.
Was the migrant program, when you arrived to the States, was the migrant program present and available to help you out?
Yes, the migrant program was helpful, available. Thankfully, Panhandle Area Educational Consultorium was there. That served as they served as through their migrant program, that they were able to assist by sending advisors to several high schools and helping the advisors and the students, communicate and see what they have to do to continue.
So as you heard, Francisco speaks about how difficult it was to adjust to new places. How hard that adjusting was, and also I also thought it was interesting how sometimes he says that sometimes they will reach a place and he was ahead of his peers, and they have to simply sit there because they had nothing, nothing. It was just difficult, there was nothing for him to do at the classroom because he knew already this subject. Now let's talk about here's Hugo. It's the oldest brother, and he also, of course, has his own experience, and I think interesting to share as well.
Hugo Cantero.
Hugo Cantero, hermano de Francisco.
Sí,
Okay.
exactamente.
Y Hugo, ¿a qué sitios mientras ibas creciendo, a qué lugares ibas viajando, qué estados visitaron mientras crecías, que tú recuerdes, y hacer qué tipo de trabajo?
Ahora sí que desde que me acuerdo, mis padres trabajaban en el campo, la mayoría de las veces piscando tomate, agricultura en el cultivo del tomate. Y viajábamos desde el sur de la Florida, centro de la Florida, al norte de la Florida, y gracias a Dios ahora sí que conocimos partes como Tennessee, las montañas de Tennessee, Ohio, la nieve, el frío, Virginia, las playas, Norte Carolina, y varios estados conocimos, no nada más trabajando, pero también.
It's again, the story is pretty similar in terms of the success. He has a bachelor's degree in graphic design. He's a camp graduate from Our Lady of the Lake University in San Antonio, Texas. And what I thought it was interesting about the way he tells the story is like how they, how they, as a family, they pick tomatoes in South, Central, and North Florida, and remembers the Tennessee mountains and the cold and snow in Ohio and the beaches in Virginia and in North Carolina. I think it sounds so romantic listening to it, from the outside. But the life, the life that these kids and their families live through, and how it's important that we maintain the efforts to minimize the disruptions caused by their migration. After we shared the videos, there was a comment in the chat box about how it's these families that inform us of the important and remind us of the importance of providing coordination between states and programs. One of the things as we were doing research that we found that was very interesting is like this next quote, which is that the most obvious and difficult problem facing educators of migrant children is that of their frequent interruptions in education caused by the child's migration. And even though there's various solutions have been put forth over the past 3 decades, these have included providing mobile schools and staff, residential schools, uniform record transfer, interstate credit exchanges, and special curriculum. I think what's most interesting about this quote is this is from an article, research that I found from 1980. Now it's 30 plus years later, and it's 3 additional decades from when this quote is actually made, and it continues to be, the challenge continues to be how do we deal with the interruption of schooling, but definitely the interstate coordination it plays a key role on how we address this challenge. Even though the methods may change, the ways that we provide the services, they change. It's just how we continue to do this, and that's what is important, and that's what's something that we cannot forget. Again, the reason for the existence of the migrant program and the interstate coordination. That concludes the portion of the webinar. Before we conclude, I want to thank the different individuals who provided the different videos and clips for that were used during the creation of this webinar. Maria Guzman, Omar Chavez, Jonathan Ferno, Jenny Pruitt, Angela Brankspaul, and the Cantero Cruz family. Also want to thank Dr. Maria Pouncy and Ms. Kim Firamanti from Florida, because they were the folks who were able for us to contact and arrange to have the Cantero family participate in this video. Also, I want to make sure that I want to thank the individuals from the Office of Migrant Education, especially Celeste Rodriguez Jensen, who is our program officer for the results contract, and the staff at Escort. Basically, literally, you have no idea about how many. Goes to the joke that how many people does Ray need to run a webinar? Well, like 5 or 6. Monica, Margot, Bob Thomas, Kim Muller, and all the other folks at our office at Escort. Also, here are the different references that are going to be included and are listed here for your benefit. And again, thank you very much. And this was a re-recording of the webinar that was presented on May 21st regarding interstate coordination and collaboration. Thank you very much.